This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Karl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Karl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
You've seen and read my 3 Pillars ebook, and now I'm proud to announce my new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship, and it's now out and ready for reading. This new book of mine is a full-length version of the teachings of the 3 Pillars, and in it I show you how to walk in the integrity of eternal universal laws, in step with the law of attraction to consistently create the life you desire. Now, if you've ever wondered just why you can't consistently manifest all the good, loving, abundant, healthy, and happy things you desire, my new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, will reveal the key in how to do just that. Plus, help you build a rock-solid personal foundation that will stand strong for the ages. Get your copy today. My new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship by Karl Gruber. Available now in ebook and paperback on Amazon.com. All right, here we go again. Yes, it's World Awakenings, a fast track to enlightenment with me, your host, Karl Gruber. Now, this is the 191st time we are doing a show about all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening. I love the saying, the force of love can save this world, and I truly believe that. So join me in diving headfirst into these beautiful topics of awakening as we continue to meet and talk one-on-one with some of the world's greatest teachers, experts, authors, and masters of all things related to the arrival of the new earth and the new beautiful level of humanity. And so with that, this is episode number 191 of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment. And we welcome back a woman who calls herself a confidence coach, Kate Heartsong. And Kate was on this show, 2.5 years ago, back on episode number 67. Now, Kate's personal journey is of self-discovery and transformation that began in 1997 when she overcame some of life's greatest challenges, and we'll certainly hope to find out about those, including childhood trauma. Now, utilizing her compassion, listening, understanding, teaching, and coaching, she helps her clients gain their empowerment and self-confidence. She is also the author of 2 books, Humanity's Cry for Change, and also Deeply We Are One. Not only is she also a Reiki energy master, but a certified life coach and certified personal financial coach too. So with that, so awesome, welcome back to World Awakenings, Kate.
Thank you, Karl. It's such a joy to be here again. I love and very passionate about your podcast, World Awakenings, because we're so in the midst, as you well know, so in the midst of so many changes and awakening. And this is exactly in alignment with what I'm doing here and as a professional speaker and coach, and very excited about empowering people in this so that we all can have an understanding of what's going on the planet and what can we do and how can we better cope with it.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons we got you back on the show. I know you had reached out to me, and I go, oh my gosh, it's been 2.5 years since she was on the show. And so it is great to have you back on. I love what you do, and you know, of course, we're going to dive deep into everything that you do, but first, let's, if you don't mind, go back and where you find out where you were that led you to this life as a coach in a Reiki energy matter. What was life like for young Kate?
Oh, yeah. Oh, life for young Kate. Well, it did start with, um, as so many people go through the difficulties of a challenging, maybe traumatic childhood, I did as well. And as a result, although my parents meant well, I had developed lots of low self-esteem and no confidence. I would be terrified to talk in front of audiences or anyone. But fortunately, in my early 20s, I was able to realize I can have a better life. And so I started taking personal workshops and delved into spiritual teachings. And I did a lot of uh, workshops, and I had some psychotherapy and EMDR to help deal with the trauma. And then as time went on, little by little, I started gaining more confidence and recognizing that I too, just like anyone else, I too deserve to be out here offering my gifts and skills. And as time went on, I got more anchored into those and was able to offer my skills and gifts. But way back then, I started out as an accountant, and that was what I was meant to do. But then, oh gosh, maybe 15, 17 years ago, I had that inner guidance to shift and and shift and go into a new career as a coach. And also about that same time, I was blessed to start channeling information during meditation. And that led me to writing my two books, all channeled and professionally edited. But little by little, this built up into more of self-confidence and knowing that I need to get a message out there, very much around what you're sharing here with your audiences as well, that we can, in fact, make change. I'm living proof, as so many people are. And so I delved into um, my guidance to become a certified coach, but I didn't do that. Well, I didn't listen to my inner guidance at the time. And even though I love working with people, it's like, no, I was so scared and nervous. The big unknown, the uncertainty. What am I going to do without a predictable paycheck? So I didn't quit. And then about 2 years later at that accounting job, the proverbial two by four hit me in the head and I got laid off, which was the biggest gift that I had gotten for my career. And that catapulted me into becoming the coach and also the author and speaker that I am today. So that takes you up into current time.
Well, that's interesting. Boy, you must have had a big knot on your head after that. But it's interesting. I've heard this many, many times that at the time when something seems to be a disaster or catastrophe, in the long run, turns out to be one of the greatest things that can ever happen. I had a friend, a personal friend, many, many years ago, who had a similar situation. He was called into his boss's office expecting to get a raise and a promotion. And when he came out, he had been fired and let go. And I mean,
Oh,
devastated. But years removed from that, it turned out, of course, it was the best thing ever happened because it gave him, instead of being stuck in a cubicle in an office for the next 30 years, he ended up doing what he wanted. He bought a farm and he loved being outside and doing that type of thing. But yeah, it's true. But if you wouldn't mind, and I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I mean, you had some trauma as a child. What happened? I mean, if you care to talk about it, if not.
oh, I'm happy to share two major things. One, my father, wonderful man, truly a good provider, Unfortunately, though, he did have a mental illness. And because of that, it caused a lot of ripple effects in the family. And the dynamics in the marriage between my parents was really awful. And he always thought there was something wrong with me. He loved me, he was a good father, but he implied that there was something wrong. And you know how impressionable kids are. Plus, I felt there was something wrong with me also because, interestingly, Carl, I fell out of a window 1.5 stories high as a toddler, 2 years old.
Mm.
Curious, I went over to this window. It had no screen. I stuck my head out. I tumbled out and thankfully landed on a patch of grass. And
Wow.
my mom, 8 months pregnant with my sister, comes running and running, horrified, and comes and grabs me and takes me to the hospital. And they thought everything was okay. A few months later, they discovered I had a severe hearing loss as a result of that fall because I wasn't talking. And they're like, what's going on? So they attribute that fall to they attribute my hearing loss to that fall and nerve loss. So back then, they didn't have good hearing aids for my type of hearing loss. So I was in school and grade school, middle school, high school with no hearing aids. And people thought I was stuck up. They thought there was something really weird because I didn't respond to them because I didn't hear. And that also had a huge impact on my esteem. It caused me to have such low esteem and shame, and there's something wrong with me, and I'm a mistake. I mean, as I talk with you,
Mhm.
I've had this thought before. It is so amazing how I have transformed. It is such a testament to the resilience of people, of their ability to transcend the trauma and difficulties and what was certainly not true. I was a good person, but I didn't think so. And this is exactly the reason I am so passionate to support and serve other people to know it is entirely possible to make change, a positive change, and to raise our self-esteem and to think good of ourselves. And that it's not egotistical because as we do this and we're more into our skills and gifts and think good of ourselves, we're better able to give to others and to serve. So I, I consider my trauma, the difficulties as gifts. I
Mhm.
don't believe I'd be as compassionate and passionate about my work if this hadn't happened. And I truly believe everything happens by design.
And to, you having undergone that, you can say, well, I've been there and done that, and I understand how to help you. So, as a confidence and life coach, you'd be the person to go to. And,
Mhm.
it is amazing to me because I know my viewers and listeners are probably sick of this because I've said that I grew up in basically a trauma-free life. And
Wow.
yeah, and both my brother and I, and so now that I do the show and I've met so many people from around the world, it's stunning how almost standard trauma is in our young lives. And of course, we learn everything, all of our belief systems and thoughts by the time we're 7. So
Mhm.
when you're a young child and emotional or physical or type whatever type of trauma happens, I mean, it stays with you for the rest of the life. And some people never overcome it.
Mhm.
But that's amazing. And so you finally at some point found a really good hearing aid and you were able
Yeah.
to not be stuck up anymore.
Indeed. Yeah, when I graduated from high school, I went out and I bought my own hearing aids. I
Mm,
think then they had the better uh, t type of technology that my type of hearing aid needed. And so it's been a big difference. But I so depend on my hearing aids, and I certainly am so grateful I do really well. Generally speaking, I do really well with my hearing loss.
Well, I think when you fell out of a window from 1.5 stories up when you were a baby, a 2-year-old, I think one of the angels caught you. That's it at the
You
bottom.
know, Carl, actually, I do believe that.
Oh, yeah.
Interestingly, my mom said to me, on either side of that small patch of grass was cement.
Oh,
And
wow.
I know, oh, I got chills.
Yeah.
The angels guided me to the grass.
Yeah. They gave you wings to slow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you and I talk about spirituality. I would like to find out. So, as you evolved into who you are now, have you ever had any type of what we would call a spiritual awakening or a Kundalini awakening along the way? I mean, you mentioned maybe some of that channeling is part of that.
Yes. I would say probably a number of experiences, some minor, but certainly one was, oh gosh, I don't know, maybe around 15, 20 years. Well, no, about 20 years ago when I had been meditating on a regular basis for a number of years. Love the practice. And one day in my meditation, I kind of heard these words. And first I was like, oh, maybe that's my ego. But I had such a strong sense of calmness. And then I was guided to grab a pen and paper. So I thought, well, I'll start writing down these words. And they were beautiful, loving guidance.
Mm,
But at first, I didn't believe it. And it happened a few more times to the point where I was learning to distinguish between what are the what is my intuition versus ego or fear or making it up from my head. And so I came to trust it, and I feel so blessed to be the messenger. And in time, then I started taking dictation for a book, what was to be my first book, Deeply We Are One, which is, in essence, recognizing our greatness and knowing it's okay to do that. And as we do, we see our greatness, we see the brilliance and greatness in others. And that helps us to better understand we're all interconnected.
mm.
So that was published in 2010. And then a few years later, I was guided to write another book. And again, the same process of just beautiful, incredible concepts. I feel so honored to be the messenger. And this became my second book, Humanity's Cry for Change, which in essence is about explaining why we're going through such upheaval on the planet and in our own individual lives. Why is it happening? What does it represent? And how can we better cope with all of these changes and challenges? And a lot of wonderful exercises in there that help us to navigate these really unprecedented times. And really, we're going through, as you well know, the an evolutionary leap. So I feel very blessed to have this experience. And then also in my, oh, I think it was my late 30s or early 40s when I went through a divorce, very difficult, but yet I knew it was the right thing to do when I asked for the divorce from my then husband. And that helped me to dig deeper into more spirituality. It seemed like that's what was the gateway that brought me into learning about, for example, A Course in Miracles.
Yeah, I want to talk more about that here in a little bit. So,
Yeah,
you mentioned trying to decide what if the voice in your head that's talking to you is either your higher divine self or your ego. And generally, the ego will always speak first, always speak the loudest, and also the most harsh and judgmental.
yeah,
And your higher divine self will always speak lovingly and
yeah.
whispering, just and you just know when it's speaking to you that you
Mm.
feel loved and blessed. And it's interesting that in today's world, many people can't decide. I don't know who's talking to me in my head.
Yeah, they may not know who's talking in their head, but You described it really well, the distinction between the two. Not only the voice, but also, I would add, for some people, maybe a lot of people also experience a certain calmness and presence when they hear their intuition
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
versus for me anyway, the ego, a little more, not tense in the body, but certainly not relaxed. So,
Well,
yeah.
and you just mentioned A Course in Miracles, and as we know, you and I are both big students of the modern spiritual guide, A Course in Miracles. What did the big blue book find? How did it find its way into your life? And what was the hardest thing to understand when you first read it?
Uh, I laugh because, yeah, when I first read it, I'm like, this is nonsense. I totally didn't get it, but that was, oh gosh, maybe 25 years ago or so. I was first introduced when I had gotten my divorce. I was blessed to have learned of this women's circle group that I started attending, learning about chakras. And as I was very much part of that women's group that met on a regular basis, the women introduced me to a New Thought church in the Denver area that I started attending all the time. I loved it. I loved the teaching. That's where a lot of my learnings and knowledge came from on the how life you how life actually works. To me, I believe it's truth. Unity consciousness, and we create our own reality and all that type of teaching. And through that, I met a person who introduced me to A Course in Miracles. She invited me to come and attend, and I'm like, well, I'm open to it. So I went, and I think I lasted, I want to say, if I remember right, maybe 6 weeks, because we did the daily lessons, and I did not understand it, and I just wasn't ready for it. But I'm not sure, maybe, I don't know, 8 or 10 years later, I revisited it, started reading the daily lessons, and then occasionally go to a class. Oh, I loved it. And then I started attending another group and really got more into the depth of the teachings. And then, and it's just very similar to the New Thought teachings that I was learning at the church that I was introduced to. And then I kind of put it aside, although I have many friends who are into the course. Then last fall, I went through what I would say maybe the most difficult time in my life, going through a huge challenge. And I'm like, I'm going to start reading A Course in Miracles again. I started with the lessons, and they were incredible, incredible comfort and truth to me. So I'm not an expert on it, but I know many of the truths and what they say. So I'm so grateful for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and anybody who is just now starting to read A Course in Miracles or thinking about it, I go back to the story about when I first met Gary Renard, one of the premier teachers in the world of the ACIM. I was at one of his workshops in Cincinnati, and I went up to him afterwards. He was signing books, and I was talking to him because he and I are the same age and we can relate. And I said, well, what was it like when you first started reading the course? And he goes, yeah, I read it, and he put it down, and he said, I said out loud, what the hell is this? This is one of the greatest teachers in the world. But yes, because it is a teaching of that everything in the world is the exact opposite of what is the truth.
Hmm.
And people are going, and that's why the workbook lessons are hard, because I think one of the first lessons is everything in this I see in this room doesn't mean anything. Yeah, and you
Yeah,
what? And you're supposed to,
exactly.
but as you stay with it, you start to see the merit in how the egoic world we're around is
Yeah.
undone. But it is a very special book that is changing the people of the world, and it's part of that new earth we're seeing now, the evolution of humanity.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm reminded that as we're talking about ACIM, uh, I'm so connecting with it last fall into December 31st that I'm going to start from day one, January 1st. So now I'm reading the lessons all over again, and I'm happy to say, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense to me.
Yay! Wow. Well, that's really interesting. And as my viewers and listeners know, I've had some of the greatest teachers of the ACIM on here. We've been blessed to have those people, and we'll have more too. Going back one more time, and because this show is called World Awakenings, and again, your main mission is to help humanity prepare for this huge evolutionary change that is
Yeah.
already going on and continues as we speak. What do you think is the biggest change that is undergoing humanity right now, and why is it happening now?
The biggest change. Honestly, I don't know if I can come up with one of the biggest change.
Sure.
But I would say it is the rising of the consciousness of humanity, which of course means the rising of consciousness for each individual person. It encompasses many things. One of them is our physical body is going from carbon into crystalline.
Yes, yeah.
There's raising of the consciousness, which really means, to me anyway, that we are going into higher vibrational emotions of qualities of God or the creator, the all that is, the universe. Qualities such as love and kindness and collaboration, peace, love and joy, all of that, that as our consciousness raises, we are better able to be in that higher vibration, which is the higher consciousness. And the reason all of this is happening is because just like anything, whether it's a nature or whether it's the whole universe, the whole cosmos, everything has a certain cycle. And we're going through a cycle, the the biggest evolutionary leap of all mankind. We're ascending from what people would say, the 3D dimension into the fifth dimension. And so it is really a leap in the evolution of each person individually, collectively, plus the dear Mother Earth, Gaia, because she has consciousness too. And of course, we're so interconnected with Gaia. So what happens with her happens with us, and vice versa. So that's part of an answer. There's many more things that could be said about the shift, but I will also add it's so fascinating to me, extremely fascinating to me, that astrology shows all of what's happening, all the shifts, and there's just so fascinating, all what's happening.
Well, and two, you mentioned something very key because I've had trance channels on here, bringing through galactic beings from Sirius and B and Pleiadians and angelic beings, and they talk about humanity making that shift from the 3D carbon based into the 5D crystalline. And I think that is a very, very hard concept for people to grasp onto. You go, wait a second, now if I go into 5D, I'm not going to need a body. And you go, "Ah, what? And what? I'm going to die? Well, no, it's not that. It's a vibrational shift that moves you from the world of form into a higher place of your true divine self, which is a pure high vibrating energy in alignment with all that is. And so there's no loss there. You're not going to die. You're just transforming or metamorphosizing into a higher, loving, more beautiful plane.
That's a good way to put it, Carl. Really great way to put it. We still have what we perceive with our what we know as our physical eyes, we see physical bodies that might be separate from our perception. However, from our current consciousness, but yet when you go into the higher consciousness, yes, we still have that ability, at least now, to see different forms, physical matter, and yet we know, yes, the divinity, the higher consciousness that allows us or is the container into which we are moving and living and embodying the higher frequencies of what I believe, and I'm sure you would agree, I believe is what the ultimate reality is, which is love, respect, kindness, peace, all the higher vibratory energies and emotions that we can embody.
And you know, it's beautiful that you and I and everybody else exist right here, right now. If you and I had been talking openly about this stuff, say, 250 years ago, we would have been burned at the stake as witches. And here we are,
Yeah.
tens of millions. I mean, there's 8 billion people on the planet, and
Wow.
probably a couple billion people already are now getting in alignment with what we're talking here. And this is why shows
Yeah.
like this are so popular. And it is beautiful. You know, one thing, going back to our study of A Course in Miracles, personally, I think the greatest thing has happened for me is every day before I go out the door, I say, Holy Spirit, let me walk in non-judgment and see the face of Christ in each and every brother and sister I meet, and forgiveness, real forgiveness, not what Course in Miracles calls forgiveness to destroy. And I'll let people go study about that because we could have another whole show on that alone.
Yeah.
But it's been a big, beautiful change for me. I feel much more peaceful now.
Yes. That's a beautiful thing and a beautiful way to show up, and to setting that intention is so powerful because we know that the real reality is all through the mind and what we think. And so when you go out, and it's so beautiful, your prayer, and it does go right in line, of course, with the Course in Miracles of being able to see and setting that intention and to live in that embodiment makes such a difference. And when we are in that place, naturally our our vibration increases into a higher frequency, which again is more matched, closer to what I call the real absolute reality, God, love, the universe, whatever title or word or name we want to give it. But I also like to tell people, I'd love to share with your audience the importance of, yes, being in that high state of vibration and emotion and love. And yet we all do have that human side of us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I know we all can relate that ego upsets that do happen. And it's important to acknowledge and not to ignore the upsets. Yes, they're going to come, but the key is to certainly acknowledge the upsets, acknowledge the challenges, be with it within reason, process through, develop ways to heal it, release it, and using our tools to get back into center of high consciousness and high vibration. So it's important not to do the spiritual bypass.
Wow, what a beautiful understanding and perspective you have, and I'm sure that's a big help. I would like to go back and talk more about your first book. How did it come about that you wrote your first book, Deeply We Are One? If I understand, it's in alignment with what we're talking about here.
Yes. I had, and I don't honestly don't remember how long it was, but once I had started realizing and trusting, this is a big key for me, was to trust that the words were really coming from my inner guidance. Because back then, I had a big issue with trust. I was brought up to believe I should not trust myself and I should not trust others. So that was part of, as a side note here, part of my upbringing and lesson on this incarnation is to learn to trust more, but also to be able to properly discern who to trust, not to just trust blindly. So that was a big lesson for me too when I was learning of the channeling and then trusting and came to really feel good and trust it. So then after, I honestly don't remember, it might have been a year or two later, then I started getting this beautiful information start on a regular basis, usually at 5 or 5:30 in the morning when the veil is thinner, to start getting all this information. And I thought, this is so good. This information is so good. It can't be just for me. I want to share this. And then I was just intuitively guided to write my first book. I never thought of myself as an author when I was growing up, but when I started doing these writings, I felt, yeah, I want to share this with the world. And part of my life purpose is to be a messenger to the masses through my books and also through my professional speaking. So I felt really good about sharing this information. Yeah, that's how the first book came about.
So I could see you laying in bed at 5 in the morning and spirit is like nudging you, hey, you slug, get up and start writing.
Yes, I know. It's like,
Get this out there.
oh,
Oh
well,
my,
interestingly, recently I have been guided to write another book, a third book.
yay.
Oh, yeah. And I, again, very honored. I have no idea what the subject matter is because it all just comes through me. But I said to my angels, please, oh yeah, that's what it was. 3 days ago when it was like 0 degrees here, we had that Arctic blast. My guides said, okay, great, you're ready to start writing again. They woke me up at like 5 in the morning, like 3 days ago. I said, oh, please, it is so cold and my house is not as warm as I'd like it to be because it's my heater can't keep up with this Arctic blast. So I'm sorry, I'm not getting up. We'll start tomorrow. So sure enough, they woke me up. Like, I think this is 2 days ago. They woke me up at 5. I'm like, okay, this is better. It's a little warmer. And so I did my first automatic writing for my first book the other day. But yeah, they're like, okay, they'll work with me. But then I also have learned I need to give them some parameters and boundaries.
Yeah. I love writing like that. That is very cool. Just
Oh,
let it
you do
let
that
it flow
too.
here. Yeah.
Cool. I didn't realize you did automatic writing as well.
I wouldn't necessarily call it automatic writing. I mean, when I've written, I've got 6 books out there, and
Oh,
well,
yeah, yes.
4 paperback, 2 ebooks. But when I write, I just sit down and I mean, I've written things, and I write a lot of blogs. You know that, and I don't even know what it's going to be, and then I type a headline, and then boom, it just comes through me. I don't know, in a couple hours or a couple days or a couple weeks, and then when I'm
Yeah.
done, I look back and go, I wrote that.
Yeah.
That, because I just create myself. I allow myself to be a vehicle for spirit to teach through me.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
so I don't know if that's automatic writing. I mean, my hand doesn't seem to move by itself or type by itself.
Yeah.
I just hear
Yeah.
it comes through and comes into my
Oh,
brain.
yeah. I think it's a matter of lingo. It could be channeling. It could be just like you said so wonderfully. I'm allowing spirit to come through me. And when we're an open channel, like you said so well, Carl, when we can really get the ego part out of the way and we truly are an open channel with which happens when we are in high vibrational frequencies, when we are in the place of openness and love and kindness and connection with all that is. This is when it happens. So whatever terminology, it's all the same thing in my mind. Yeah.
Beautiful process. But
Oh, it is.
speaking of writing blogs, I just today read one of your blogs titled "Peace or Upset, Which Do You Choose?"
Oh,
Reminds me of the line, "Would you rather be right or would you rather be happy?" Can you
yeah.
talk a little bit on this?
Yes, I wrote that. Oh gosh, I don't know, maybe about 2 years ago or so. But I was going through a time of, is all this worry worth it? And is it even solving anything? I know very well that worry or being anxious doesn't solve anything. And what would I rather have? Do I want the upset of worry or do I want peace? And so I came to realize, and also again revisited this actually last fall. If there's something I can do, if something is in my control, okay, I'll take action. But if it's something that's happening that is not in my control, it is so much, it brings so much more peace. It brings a sense of acceptance if I can be in a place of just accepting what is. So that's a lot of what that is, peace or upset. And like, yeah, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? And gosh, I'm sure so many people of the audience here and many people around the world have had their fair share of upsets in life. So for me, it's a reminder of, well, what is in my control and what is not in my control. So if it's not in my control, we know very well resisting is surely not going to make it any better. Resisting what is, it gives more upset.
Hmm.
Accepting or going with the flow makes it so much easier. And again, I remind myself, but I don't want to deny my upset feelings, but don't hang on to them.
So actually, I think this goes back to when we were trying to decide, is the ego talking or is my higher divine self talking? And if you're in a state of worry and upset, which puts you in a spiral of not feeling well, and we realize that the ego thrives and feeds off of being out of misalignment and chaotic, negative, vibrating energy place,
Yeah.
as you're sitting there, and yes, I mean, even myself, a couple summers ago, I went through a period of just being really judgmental and angry about something, and I couldn't seem to get it to go away. And I finally realized, no, stop, pivot on the spot, and change what you really want. So it's not, if you understand this, it's not hard to realize which voice is talking to you, and you can change your mind about it.
Right. And it is so important to be in a place of awareness of ourself, our thoughts, our physical body, so that we can stop and intercept the negative thinking or the upsets or the emotions that are not serving us. Awareness, I always tell my clients and my audiences this is so key in life, is being aware, to be the observer of our own self so we can stop ourselves from spiraling. And again, I know I'm repeating myself, but not to ignore the upset, but to just simply be aware of it and don't beat ourselves up for beating ourselves up. We often have negative self-talk, then we can stop and just be aware of it and then shift, because we do have that beautiful capacity of changing our perception and changing our thinking or reframing it.
Yeah, that's well said too. And of course, we are talking to the amazing Kate Heartsong, author, confidence coach, Reiki master. And speaking of you being a confidence coach, what and how do you help people with being confident? And what areas of life do most people need help in being confident?
Yeah, I help my clients with being confident by having them recognize, actually one thing is to recognize the negative self-talk, the negative beliefs about themselves, and then to replace that. One of the tools I use that has been very successful is to be in a place of awareness, aware of how am I talking to myself, and to intercept it, putting a positive phrase. One of my clients, her phrase I love, it's, I am a treasure. So when
Yeah.
she finds herself upset or beating herself up, she is now much more in a place of awareness. And then we'll substitute that phrase, I am a treasure. And this has helped her. And then there's other tools that I share with them. And the areas of life are often just their personal self relationship to self. And another area is how they are showing up with work. But it's often just, their own lack of self-esteem or the relationship that I'm sorry, I'm not saying this well. What is their belief about themselves?
Mhm.
It's the internal relationship is what I see a lot.
Yeah, and you mentioned work, being confident at work, and myself and anybody can relate to this. I mean, there's always seems to be somebody at work that you're out of alignment with or just don't see eye to eye with. And boy, that's where you can really practice these beautiful things you're talking about, making the shift consciously and being forgiving and loving.
Right. To not take things so personally, but again, also to be aware, well, how am I showing up? Or, and why is this person triggering me? And if I am a self responsible, self conscious person, then I will and use that as an invitation to then explore within myself what is it within me that is causing me to be triggered by this other person? Because everything and everyone is a mirror to us. And so if we are in a knowing about ourselves that yes, everything is a mirror, then when I see and know and am aware that, oh, this one particular person is triggering me, what is it within myself that I can work on? Am I willing to work on it? Do I even know that it is actually a reflection of me?
And
So,
that is one of the key teachings of A Course in Miracles over and over and over again. As I give, so shall I receive. It is impossible to cast judgment or something, hate on another person without it coming back to you because you're exactly that. You're projecting it onto the other person because you're thinking you're getting rid of it from yourself so you can feel better. But no, it doesn't work that.
it doesn't work that way. We're conditioned to think it does,
Yes.
but it sure doesn't. And that is, like you said, so well, A Course in Miracles. One of the greatest teachings is to recognize that, yes, I am projecting it out to another. Whatever I see in my world is truly a reflection of me. And why is this? One reason is because we're all actually interconnected. We're all actually one. But that's, that for me anyway, and probably many others, it took me a while to kind of grasp onto and understand that concept that I actually have everything inside of me. Not all of it's prevalent, not all of it is a dominant trait, but I have everything inside of me that everyone else has. And
Mhm.
we're all interconnected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a beautiful thought and what a beautiful knowing. But one last thing I would like to chat a little bit with you about. I find it fascinating that you are a Reiki energy healer. How did that come about in your life, and how do you utilize Reiki, and what is Reiki?
Okay. Reiki is a gentle hands-on healing that harnesses the chi energy, also known as the life force energy, from the all that is. Chi is also known as Reiki. Reiki is a Japanese word. Rei is the universal life in Japanese, REI. And then the KI, so Reiki, KI is chi or life force energy. And in my early 40s, I started feeling this warm sensation in my palms, I'm like, wow, what is this? I had just recently started going to that New Thought church. This is after my divorce when my whole life beautifully opened up. And I'm feeling these warm sensations in both my palms, had no idea what it was, mentioned it to a friend, and my friend said, and she had a certain knowing. She said, that might be Reiki energy. And I'm like, what is that? So she explained it to me. I was so intrigued. It was like a moth to a flame. I knew I needed to do this. So I looked into it. I found a wonderful Reiki master and teacher. And I don't remember the year I did, but it's a good 25 years, maybe 28 years ago when I have my first class. Then I went on to the second class, third, and then I became a teacher about 20 years ago. And it's such an honor for me to teach Reiki to my students. I don't actively do it, but I do a few classes a year because I do other things as well. But so I will teach it, and then on occasion, I'll have a client. Again, it's not something I'm actively promoting, but I do use it in my life often. I do long distance Reiki for friends. If I know someone is going to surgery, I may do that, or, whatever physical ailment. So I keep myself active with a Reiki. Sometimes I do it on myself. And there's certain of the symbols of Reiki that I like to use as part of my almost daily living.
And that's beautiful knowing that Reiki energy healing can be done not only hands-on but from a distance, and,
Yeah.
and not just on because everything is energy. It works actually not on just something living. One of my very very
Yeah.
early guests on the show, Terry Wilson. This is 191st episode. I think Terry was on episode 6, and he's a personal friend of mine. And Terry's an energy Reiki energy master, and he was also in the media like me too, and he had a big project he was working on his home computer. And the computer, he had this big project, and it was showing signs it was about to crash, and he would have lost all this information. And he performed Reiki energy healing on the computer, and the computer
Wow.
rebooted. He saved the information, and after he did, the computer just bonked. And so I always love that story. It is an
That is
example.
amazing.
Everything is energy, and when you focus your healing energy on something, it works.
It does. In fact, my refrigerator occasionally, or the freezer makes awful sounds. And so I will just talk to my refrigerator and I will send some Reiki energy to it and it calms down. And it's like,
Yeah.
I totally believe this. And it can be used in other and non-physical life forms as well. I will also add that I meant to add that Reiki is intelligent energy. It always knows best what the person needs. So there's never such thing as doing too much Reiki or anything like that because when we use Reiki, we're coming from a place of intention of goodness and to do the best for the highest and best good for the person involved.
Yeah.
That's the best thing to do.
Well, Kate Heartsong, this has been an amazing conversation. One last thing, and if we could just do this quickly, I'd like to ask your thoughts on this. America is in a very, very divisive, chaotic political climate now with the changes of administration. There's a lot of judgment and hate going on. What would be your advice to make it a little more peaceful, loving road?
Excellent question, and I'll keep it short. The best thing we can do is as a one person individual, we have a lot of opportunity for making positive change. And that is to be as much as we can in high vibration of love, kindness, respect. If we meet someone who is in opposition to us, the best thing we can do is be in a place of love, understand they're coming from their place and I'm coming from mine. When so many of us are in the high vibration, that all adds up to positive. And love truly overrides everything. So, as much as we can be in high vibration, love, gratitude, kindness to yourself as well as to others, this can make a difference.
Yeah, well, and on that, that is a beautiful, beautiful finish. I really appreciate your sentiment on that and your teaching and love. Kate, I'm glad you are back on the show today, and this
Oh, me
is awesome.
too.
And you and I, we are part of the world awakening and bringing a
Yeah.
little more light and love and truth into the world. Thank you, Kate.
Oh, it's been such a joy. Thank you so much, Carl.
Oh, one last thing, I forgot. What's your website?
Oh, thank you for asking. Joyfulradiance.com. Joyfulradiance.com. And you can see my book and you'll receive amazing gift. I would love to have your audience join my email list if they would like to get some of those really enlightening, positive blogs that I write, plus some other things that they'll see on my website. So thanks for asking.
And there you go. And with that, again, thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you, and many blessings.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Karl Gruber, a certified law of attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.